built in 1896, of brick with a New York State blue slate roof. In 1950, the 12 original members of the Coach House Players, Chick and Carlin Gross, Irvin Marion Rose, Teresa Lloyd, Kay Bergevin, Terry Roberts, Bob Russell, Olive Herdman, Lauren and Hilda Swayze, and George Betts purchased this building. Tonight, George, the only founding member still with the group, and the Coach House Players historian, will take us on a tour of the building. And here is George. Listening eagerly are some of the current membership of the Coach House Players 1988.
But I'm going to pass around two pictures which I prize very highly. The train is the Coykendall private train. They sat up in front in willow chairs over the boiler of the engine. There's also a car on the back, which I don't know who rode in that, maybe the employees or maybe other honored guests. But it had a special whistle. And when we heard that whistle, I lived over on East Chester Street at that time. And when we heard the whistle, everybody said, "Here comes 20." And we all ran to the railroad tracks to cheer and applaud and so forth. We just thought that was great, because there goes the King's by, you know? They're usually on an inspection tour, they called it, but it was his private, real personal toy, I understand. His name was Samuel D. Coykendall. Yeah. Decker, the D stands for. Now it's up in that horseshoe is their emblem, SDC. And there were other things probably around here, but they're gone. They belong to the Coykendalls. And that house, I want to get them out of the way because I can, because I know most of the people here are interested in the building and the history. Sam Coykendall married, I think her name was Mary Augusta Cornell. Now, old Cornell had something like 65 steamships, which were the largest fleet in the United States owned by one man. When his daughter married, I understand, his bookkeeper, who was Sam Decker Coykendall. Now you'll see Coykendall in many names, many spellings, with the K and other versions. In Jersey, I understand they call them Coykendalls. Here, that comes out of the Dutch. And it was started, I've seen a Dutch version with a K. At one time, now I have this, I swore I would never release this information until the person that told me died. Now he's been dead a few years. But he told me their income was $1,000 a day, which would have been $365,000 a year. He built this house that you're passing around, this castle, for $1 million. Now we don't know the exact. You know, you could rent a nice house today for $1 million, but we don't know when he built it, but we know it was in the early, or not, probably the middle or later part of the 1800s. He had, to my knowledge, he had 7 children, 1 girl, 6 boys. Over in Montreal Cemetery, there was, or there still is, their burial ground. It is, as I remember, I haven't been up there in years, but it was a gorgeous thing. It had a Roman columns, colonnade all around. Everyone was under a marble slab. And it was beautiful. They had 2 gardeners that were there all the time, guarding it on Sunday. Everybody went up there to walk around, see it. They used to come here in the Coach House. I think I better start on Coach House. We had a theater group, and some different ideaed people came and joined, and we didn't like it, and so they got mad at us and they got smart. We had a $1 entrance fee or a $1 dues if you were a full member. They paid, and they brought, I think, something like 18 high school kids. They paid $1 a piece. Her husband was, she did it, but her husband was elected president, and we had a little trouble. We left them, and then we got itching again. And one night, Carlin Gross called me up. Now, I don't think many of you remember the Grosses. They ran the Governor Clinton Hotel, Chick and Carlin was the boss. No, anybody that knew them knew that. And she was a great person, so was Chick. She called me, told me, she says, "George, did you ever see that old brick barn up on Augusta Street?" And I says, "Yeah, I've often dreamed of having that for a theater." "Well, why don't we do something about it?" "Well, we better get an organization first." So we did. We had 12 people to start with. Irv and Marion Rose, Chick and Carlin Gross, Lorne and Hildegard Swayze, Olive Law, Bill Hawk, Kay Bergman, Tess Lloyd, and Terry Roberts, and myself. We struggled. We got the building for $5,500 in 1950. Harry Fleming was the attorney for the Coykendall estate. And Carlin got a hold of him because he was, I think he was living in the hotel at that time. And they gave us a good deal, we felt. It was what's $5,500, you know. Now, it's nothing. But we got this building, and then we started digging down in our pockets. We had a friend of Mrs. Gross's, can't remember her name right now. She lived on Fair Street. Her husband was in gold mines in Canada.
Hayes.
Huh?
Hayes. Mrs. Hayes.
Yeah. Mrs. Dean Hayes.
Dean Hayes.
And she put up the money. And we gave her a mortgage with nothing up. So we struggled along. I mean, the first tank of oil that we got in, Kay Bergman paid for it. I always remember that. It was $75 for the tank of oil. And we thought that was an awful lot of money to get out. It was an old steam boiler in the cellar, which is under our kitchen. See, and that and the room under here are the only two excavated rooms. The rest are on the earth. We all donated something or put in something, you know, and we got along. We had trouble getting insurance, and I think finally somebody got in. We took in new members pretty rapidly, and I think Stanley London, I know he got a lot of publicity for us in the Freeman because he could threaten them with pulling his ads out. And there's a lot of that was going on. But, well, I can't tell you much more that we're starting, but I'm going to tell you about this building. It's one of the best built buildings in Kingston. It's in better condition than the old City Hall is. Of course, we have heat in here, which is one fine thing. We have a slate roof, which is New York State purple, and is no longer mine. Excuse me. I They tore that down.
Well, that's not here anymore.
One is where that house stood. It stood right over here where they put up, I think it's 5 or 7 bungalow-type houses, modern things. It's a shame because it would have been a gorgeous museum for Kingston, an art gallery, bread and breakfast place. Could have been fabulous. Now, if somebody else asked me, what's this house over here? That's the heart of that apartment section. It is Edward's house. Now, I always heard him spoken of as Mr. Edward. Of course, that was back when maids and butlers, they always called the kids in the house Mr. Of course, the old man was Mr. too, I suppose. But I don't ever remember seeing the old man, SD. But I knew Edward by sight, and he lived there, and that house was taken for House Beautiful at one time, and they had gorgeous gardens, and it overlooks the river, and they call it colonial, and things, perfect architecture. I don't call it colonial, but now it's not good. It's brick now. It was white, and it had railings in front of the windows, like you open French doors, and there's a railing so you wouldn't fall out, and all that sort of. It's a beautiful place. In fact, the last that I knew, he had a Japanese butler and 2 Japanese maids. And then the war, they disappeared. They probably interned or something. I don't know. I'm guessing. All right, now over here they're buried. And sometime when you have time, I think it's still worthwhile, but they tell me it's in pretty bad ruin, the cemetery thing. Ask me some questions if you want.
What's happened to the family today?
They're all dead. The line is ended. Now, I'll explain that first. As I said, there were 7 children, all right? I can't tell you who they married, all of them or not, but there was one, I think his name was Harry, married a very famous actress. And somewhere, someone was cleaning a cellar, and they said, oh, I don't know how to get rid of these old newspapers. And somehow, Luke Shealy was there, and he says, I'll take them. And his daughter, of course, was active in Coach House, and she found this article on the Coykendall, this woman's death, Mrs. Coykendall, the actress. And I can't find it, but it's somewhere in my house of terror. Then there was, Ed had no children. I know that. And then there was one in New York, Frederick. He was married and had a daughter. And she married and lived, I forget, her name slips away from me right now, but she moved to California, had a boy, and oh, I don't know, maybe 5, maybe 6 years ago, someone called me and said that she had died. And her son died the next day, or the son died one day and she died the next, vice versa, I don't know which it was now. So that ended the line. That was Frederick's grandson. And he was never married. I don't think he was old enough, but that was the end of the Coykendall line, as far as I know. You can find out. So, there were 2 bachelors lived in the castle over here. When I peddled papers, they always, one of them always came out into the portico and waited for